a fine line between having a spiritual awakening and losing your mind. In fact, I no longer believe there's any sort of line, it's a question of perspective. I am well aware that from the perspective of people who know the old version of myself, my current behaviour seems strange, and I do agree. There is a strong undercurrent of quiet desperation to my actions. Am I embracing the future here, or am I running away from the past? When a snake sheds its skin, it does so only once it has grown a new skin beneath the old. There is a time when both versions coexist in a state which is mutually uncomfortable for both the outgoing and the newly emergent. The aptness of this metaphor will not be lost on anyone who knows me personally. I've been in the process of shedding my skin for 5 years now. Doctors called it psoriasis, but I haven't been back to a doctor since I figured out the difference between treatment and healing, and that I was only interested in the latter. It is plain to me that the root cause of my discomfort is not physical, though I lack the understanding to describe in words what I feel that it could be. I believe there is something feeding me information, showing me the way somehow. Whatever it is, it wanted me to turn my back on crutches, comforts and distractions. 3 years ago it introduced me to the straight edge lifestyle, cardiovascular fitness in the form of mountain biking, and shortly after that the plant-based diet. All these things, it seems, have been preparing the groundwork. As my physiology and outlook on life shifted, so my external circumstances altered accordingly. For the first time since my teenage years, I found myself in the bizarre and alien territory of a stable relationship which lasted around 12 months. I lived for 2 years in someone else's suburban dream. I was being shown what it was I would be giving up to follow my path. There are no victims in this game called life, my friends. Everything is by contract, everything by consent. And so this relationship ended. I met a whole new group of individuals called the Tribe, and I began work on the place I now call home. So whilst I acknowledge the inherent desperation in evidence here, I also acknowledge that I chose 5 years of illness. I chose isolation, I chose solitude. It's not all doom and gloom though. There's a universal law which states that however far the pendulum swings one way, it will swing back the other in time. Sovereignty, in every sense of the word, is the ultimate goal. We must accept that, as painful as it is to consider, we are 100% responsible for our current circumstances. We must accept that we are not victims, and we never were. This must be where I am now. The energy blockages which remain in my body manifest as an angry rash, showing me where I am still in opposition to the truth. I first came across the concept of fasting as a health thing. They prescribe it to cancer patients post-chemotherapy because in a fasted state the body devours anything it can for fuel. This includes, but is not limited to, damaged or faulty immune system cells. Chemotherapy is devastating to the immune system. After just 72 hours, however, it is said that the body has consumed the damaged immune system cells, and then when the patient carefully resumes eating once more, effectively the body generates a new immune system. Fasting is also the #1 way to reset an imbalanced gut. The link between skin health, immune system and gut function is well documented. To state the blindingly obvious, when a wild animal becomes sick, it doesn't go to the doctor, it doesn't take paracetamol or make itself some chicken soup. It lies down quietly and it fasts. Fasting is Mother Nature's go-to heal-all. For over a year now I've been watching a man on YouTube by the name of John St. Julian. His channel has become the greatest resource for knowledge on the subject of fasting as a means to induce spiritual awakening that YouTube has to offer. According to St. Julian, when the moon is transiting our birth sign, there is a sacred secretion produced in the brain, an oily substance which travels down the spine to rest at the sacrum bone, the 5 fused vertebrae at the base of the spine. If our body is not too acidic and we abstain from what the Bible calls riotous living, this sacred secretion is preserved and travels back up the spine to the brain, where it causes the production of DMT. This knowledge is encoded in spiritual and esoteric texts from many ancient cultures, cloaked in metaphor and allegory, hidden from the masses but known to the self-proclaimed elites who jealously guard the knowledge for themselves, believing that a mass awakening of empowered individuals would abuse this knowledge, as the elites themselves have done. It is my understanding that through following the straight edge lifestyle these past 3 years, regardless of my ignorance of the movements of the moon above or any esoteric guidance, I have, at least to a limited extent, spontaneously tapped into this hidden function of the human body. It has caused me to turn my back on my lower nature, difficult though it has been, and to tune into subtle voices which speak without words. By escaping the rent trap, I have afforded myself the luxury of being able to fast whenever the moon is transiting my birth sign. I ate my last meal yesterday morning, and some hours later the moon arrived in my birth sign, Pisces. Until it leaves to Aries sometime on Saturday, I will allow only water to pass my lips. I will spend the next 3 days alone, walking in the forest. Tried to just do that vlog style to the camera yesterday evening, but there was just too much information I wanted to get in there and get it all to kind of make sense, that I decided it'd be better to script it and do it as a monologue. And it still probably didn't make all that much sense, did it? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. I just know what I've been shown. And I know that when I act on the information I've been shown, I receive confirmation. It feels right in here. That's when I see the numbers. That's when I meet people who are having similar experiences. And you know, it's really weird. Even just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was asking me, "Oh, what's going on in the woods? How's it going?" And I was telling her kind of what I was leaning towards, and she started speaking like, "Yep, I've made contact with this thing," and she's talking about consciousness as well, and I can't remember the words she used to describe it. I said, "What, Christ consciousness? That's how you describe it?" And she's like, "Yeah," but the guy that she learns from is doing this thing called NSA, Network Spinal Analysis, which is something working with energy channels in the body. Yeah, he doesn't use the term Christ consciousness because obviously it's quite off-putting to people, because so much of this knowledge is encoded in the Jesus story and the other various Christ stories like Buddha and was it Krishna? He's another one. Horus, all these guys who had this awakening come upon them in some extreme form. But I've met lots of people who clearly have been influenced by this Christ consciousness, whatever it is. But it's just the label that's off-putting to people, the association with religion, and people have got this idea that, oh, we've left religion behind now. We've sort of grown and evolved beyond it as a civilization, but we've well and truly thrown the baby out with the bathwater, guys. And I realised this when I was watching John St. Julian. I used to call myself an atheist. Then I sort of kept thinking, because you never want to reach a point where you stop thinking. You never want to reach a point where you go, okay, I know there's no God now. Because you don't know that. You can't know that there is not a something out there, whatever it is. But basically, by the time I encountered John St. Julian, I was open to the idea that there is knowledge encoded in something like the Bible. It's not just a bunch of random stories and bollocks, to put it bluntly. And yeah, you'd be amazed how many people you meet who have experienced this kind of thing, and maybe they haven't done it in quite the way that I've done it, but you know, for all my interest in things like astrology and spirituality, I'm actually a very down-to-earth, very practical guy. I work with my hands, I always have done. You know, I like building and maintaining bikes, whether they're motorcycles or mountain bikes, I don't mind. But as I said in the intro there, I think I just accidentally stumbled onto this thing through the straight edge lifestyle. It wasn't something I intended to happen. But then I also mention in there that everything's done by contract. You know, we are, whether we know it or not, whether we accept it or not, we're all sovereign. Nothing can happen here without our prior agreement, without our authority. And so I'm now, rather than just being a passenger in the process, I'm really going to apply myself to the process of fasting when the moon is transiting Pisces, which is my birth sign, my sun sign. And you know, it's an experiment just to see if anything happens. So I think it's that kind of mentality that maybe go and experiment with this way of thinking and this way of being, and going, do you know what, there's more to life than whatever it was that motivated me in my 20s. You know, it wasn't higher things, it wasn't spiritual things, it wasn't philosophical concepts. I wasn't this deeper thinker, I'm sure I wasn't. It was always, the potential was always there, the blueprint was always there. But it just hadn't sort of manifested. And I guess all I'm doing is just taking this new level of complexity and trying to fit it into what I was before. Do you know what I mean? And we'll go over here off the trail into the woods. So yeah, it's been 24 hours, just over, since I last ate. It's probably getting on for midday now, so. And it is Thursday. So my last meal was breakfast on Wednesday. I won't eat again now until about midday on Saturday. I've done numerous 3-day fasts in the past 2 years. Quite a lot of 1-day fasts, just if ever I feel a little bit sick in the stomach, 1-day fast, clear it out straight away. And I did the 7-day fast at the end of 2016, which fucked me up a bit. And actually, I think I might have developed a little bit of a tendency towards an eating disorder at that point in time. But so I'm already feeling a little bit spacey, you know, like I might have had a drink or two. I know people do fast for great long periods of time, 40 days and more, and I really don't know how they do that. But for me, 7 days almost killed me. 3 days is quite enough. It's quite enjoyable. It's quite a chilled out feeling. Just want to find somewhere nice to sit down and rest and probably have a nap. That's what I did yesterday afternoon. I just went out for a stroll. Yeah, a lot of sleeping, a lot of napping is on the cards. And just tuning into whatever it is that speaks in quiet voices without words.